Learning never exhausts the mind. Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence. There are three classes of people: those who see when they are shown, those who do not see. Tears come from the heart and not from the brain. I love those who can smile in trouble, who can gather strength from distress, and grow brave by reflection. 'Tis the business of little minds to shrink, but they whose heart is firm, and whose conscience approves their conduct, will pursue their principles unto death. The greatest deception men suffer is from their own opinions. Art is never finished, only abandoned. As a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so a life well spent brings happy death. Poor is the pupil who does not surpass his master. I have been impressed with the urgency of doing. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Being willing is not enough, we must do. Why does the eye see a thing more clearly in dreams than the imagination when awake? The noblest pleasure is the joy of understanding. While I thought that I was learning how to live, I have been learning how to die. Iron rusts from disuse, water loses its purity from stagnation, even so does inaction sap the vigor of the mind. Nature is the source of all true knowledge. She has her own logic, her own laws, she has no effect without cause nor invention without necessity. The human foot is a masterpiece of engineering and a work of art. A beautiful body perishes, but a work of art dies not. Time stays long enough for anyone who will use it. Marriage is like putting your hand into a bag of snakes in the hope of pulling out an eel. Where there is shouting, there is no true knowledge. He who wishes to be rich in a day will be hanged in a year. The beginnings and ends of shadow lie between the light and darkness and may be infinitely diminished and infinitely increased. Shadow is the means by which bodies display their form. The forms of bodies could not be understood in detail but for shadow. All our knowledge has its origins in our perceptions. He who loves practice without theory is like the sailor who boards ship without a rudder and compass and never knows where he may cast. It's easier to resist at the beginning than at the end. Intellectual passion drives out sensuality. Water is the driving force of all nature. Our life is made by the death of others. Who sows virtue reaps honor. Just as food eaten without appetite is a tedious nourishment, so does study without zeal damage the memory by not assimilating what it absorbs. Time abides long enough for those who make use of it. Men of lofty genius sometimes accomplish the most when they work least, for their minds are occupied with their ideas and the perfection of their conceptions, to which they afterwards give form. He who is fixed to a star does not change his mind. I have offended God and mankind because my work didn't reach the quality it should have. The smallest feline is a masterpiece. There are 4 powers: memory and intellect, desire, and covetousness. The 2 first are mental and the others sensual. The 3 senses, sight, hearing, and smell cannot well be prevented, touch and taste not at all. Medicine is the restoration of discordant elements, sickness is the discord of the elements infused into the living body. The natural desire of good men is knowledge. Where the spirit does not work with the hand, there is no art. Blinding ignorance does mislead us. Oh, wretched mortals, open your eyes. Human subtlety will never devise an invention more beautiful, more simple, or more direct than does nature, because in her inventions nothing is lacking, and nothing is superfluous. The human bird shall take his first flight, filling the world with amazement, all writings with his fame, and bringing eternal glory to the nest whence he sprang. Knowledge of the past and of the places of the earth is the ornament and food of the mind of man. In rivers, the water that you touch is the last of what has passed and the first of that which comes, so with present time. Life well spent is long. Beyond a doubt, truth bears the same relation to falsehood as light to darkness. Painting is concerned with all the 10 attributes of sight, which are darkness, light, solidity, and color, form and position, distance and propinquity, motion and rest. As every divided kingdom falls, so every mind divided between many studies confounds and saps itself. Science is the captain, and practice the soldiers. The function of muscle is to pull and not to push, except in the case of the genitals and the tongue. Nature never breaks her own laws. Common sense is that which judges the things given to it by other senses. You can have no dominion greater or less than that over yourself. Anyone who conducts an argument by appealing to authority is not using his intelligence, he is just using his memory. The Medici created and destroyed me. You do ill if you praise, but worse if you censure what you do not understand. Just as courage imperils life, fear protects it. For, verily, great love springs from great knowledge of the beloved object, and if you little know it, you will be able to love it only little or not at all. Every action needs to be prompted by a motive. The length of a man's outspread arms is equal to his height. The senses are of the earth, the reason stands apart from them in contemplation. Necessity is the mistress and guide of nature. Necessity is the theme and inventress of nature, her curb, and her eternal law. I have found that, in the composition of the human body as compared with the bodies of animals, the organs of sense are duller and coarser. Thus, it is composed of less ingenious instruments, and of spaces less capacious for receiving the faculties of sense. How many emperors and how many princes have lived and died, and no record of them remains, and they only sought to gain dominions and riches in order that their fame might be everlasting. To such an extent does nature delight and abound in variety that among her trees there is not one plant to be found which is exactly like another, and not only among the plants, but among the boughs, the leaves, and the fruits, you will not find one which is exactly similar to another. Experience never errs, it is only your judgments that err by promising themselves effects such as are not caused by your experiments. The mind of the painter must resemble a mirror, which always takes the color of the object it reflects and is completely occupied by the images of as many objects as are in front of it. Men of lofty genius, when they are doing the least work, are most active. It is better to imitate ancient than modern work, which ends in words will die as quickly as it came to life, with the exception of the written word, which is its mechanical part. It is better to imitate ancient than modern work. I have wasted my hours. The poet ranks far below the painter in the representation of visible things, and far below the musician in that of invisible things. Many are they who have a taste and love for drawing, but no talent, and this will be discernible in boys who are not diligent and never finish their drawings with shading. The painter who draws merely by practice and by eye, without any reason, is like a mirror which copies everything placed in front of it without being conscious of their existence. Experience does not err. Only your judgments err by expecting from her what is not in her power. The divisions of perspective are three, as used in drawing. Of these, the first includes the diminution in size of opaque objects, the second treats of the diminution and loss of outline in such opaque objects, the third, of the diminution and loss of color at long distances. The truth of things is the chief nutriment of superior intellects. Weight, force, and casual impulse, together with resistance, are the four external powers in which all the visible actions of mortals have their being and their end. Good men by nature wish to know. I know that many will call this useless work, men who desire nothing but material riches and are absolutely devoid of that of wisdom, which is the food and only true riches of the mind. In order to arrive at knowledge of the motions of birds in the air, it is first necessary to acquire knowledge of the winds, which we will prove by the motions of water in itself, and this knowledge will be a step enabling us to arrive at the knowledge of beings that fly between the air and the wind. Man and animals are in reality vehicles and conduits of food, tombs of animals, hostels of death, coverings that consume, deriving life by the death of others. Our body is dependent on heaven and heaven on the spirit. Just as courage is the danger of life, so is fear its safeguard. Although nature commences with reason and ends in experience, it is necessary for us to do the opposite, that is to commence with experience and from this to proceed to investigate the reason. I have always felt it is my destiny to build a machine that would allow man to fly. The spirit desires to remain with its body, because, without the organic instruments of that body, it can neither act, nor feel anything. It seems that it had been destined before that I should occupy myself so thoroughly with the vulture, for it comes to my mind as a very early memory. When I was still in the cradle, a vulture came down to me. He opened my mouth with his tail and struck me a few times with his tail against my lips. People talk to people who perceive nothing, who have open eyes and see nothing. They shall talk to them and receive no answer. They shall adore those who have ears and hear nothing. They shall burn lamps for those who do not see. There is no object so large but that at a great distance from the eye it does not appear smaller than a smaller object near. Each man is always in the middle of the surface of the earth and under the zenith of his own hemisphere, and over the center of the earth. The painter who is familiar with the nature of the sinews, muscles, and tendons, will know very well, in giving movement to a limb, how many and which sinews cause it, and which muscle, by swelling, causes the contraction of that sinew, and which sinews, expanded into the thinnest cartilage, surround and support the said muscle.